I'm the founder and the CEO of CastellumLabs. We are a cybersecurity outfit. We don't do anything other than cybersecurity. We are fundamentally a very deep tech driven, very domain centric cybersecurity company. Most of our things we do, they are powered by the technologies, powered by the research, which has been done by us only. So that's one of the biggest differentiator we have. I'm here to talk about AI security, right? In continuation of the conversation which was just happening. So before I get us started, let me just ask a very basic but fundamental and important question. How many of you guys have actually got what is typically called an active AI adoption in your organization? You can just raise the hand. I'll get a sense of the audience. Right? Okay, so 3. Or 4. Did you raise the hand? Right, 4. So out of roughly about 15 odd people are there, only 4 people of their organizations, they have actually got active adoption. Active adoption of AI. Now that is something which should actually tell you about the hype which is there around AI. Less number of organizations have gone into the active adoption of the AI. Now let me ask you one thing: is that the people who haven't got anything related to the AI going on in their organization, do you think that your organization is still exposed to AI threats? The companies who have not really formally adopted any program for building AI, or adopting AI, do you still think that your company is exposed to AI threats?
Yes.
Okay, fine. What is the top threat? Let me start with what is the top threat you think? If you don't have AI actively adopted in your organization, what do you think is your top threat? What is your top exposure?
You are not able to defend at the speed of AI.
You're not able to?
Defend the threats.
Right.
Speed of AI.
No. My question is, if your company has not formally adopted AI as a solution, as a piece of technology, do you still think that your company is exposed to AI related threats? Correct. So this is one of the biggest misconception in the industry. When I talk to the traditional sectors, particularly the non-tech sectors where the tech has not been very heavy, there's one of the most common misconception that we are not doing any AI. And since we are not doing any AI, the threats related to AI, they don't really affect us. They don't really matter to us. Nothing could be farther from the truth. Without your knowledge, more than 20% of your organization would be using AI in one shape or other shape. And that causes one of the biggest exposure for your organization. Majority of the time, you don't realize that you have that exposure till you get to a point where something has happened and which has caused either data exposure for you, or it has caused regulatory exposure for you. Case in point, a lot of your employees, they don't come to you and they don't really ask you that whether I can use AI or whether I can use ChatGPT, whether I can use Gemini, So without your knowledge, unless you have got an absolute lockdown situation, unless you have got controls which are phenomenal, almost every company is using AI.
90% of the companies, directly or indirectly.
Correct.
Because in terms of business strategy perspective,
Correct.
their employees, in terms of their financial system, kind of analytics perspective, money can that is CEO, that is the CFO, that they are working in an identity, AI-based agent, they are working.
Correct.
But directly or indirectly, Only the issue is nowadays, I'm thinking especially, tokens is one of the key issue where the utilization is more hardware side. Because most of the people don't. AI is the best part. Many of the organizations facing the problem when you are building a product or when you are working a product. Hardware is one of the major part. That is one part, and token part also sometimes which one is not there. The cloud is shaping things are moving like building.
Correct.
Because when you go to Max, we have a lot of paper because we don't know what extent. We build a lot of things because we are also one of the global and the healthcare. Initially, it's gone live for appointments and diagnostics or whatever it is. But when you are going, when the users are getting more and more, the performance is getting increased. User space increase. Your hardware size increase. The traffic is at a agent rate. It's taking time sometimes because we need to maintain a proper data center infrastructure impact very heavy.
Depending on your compute model.
Adopting the biggest big company is still thinking that adopting AI is good, but same time it is one of the dangerous also. I'm talking about some companies. I'm not talking about all. I'm talking about ERP centric based organization, big organization like Dr. Reddy's, especially life sciences companies.
Correct.
Because your data will be very different data, whatever it's very sensitive data.
Two fundamental, two big issues in front of the industry, as particularly as
Not industry based, whatever the.
What's your name?
My name is Sunil.
Sunil. Okay, right. Yeah, I think two critical challenges in front of almost all the companies. One challenge is going to be if you're developing AI, then one of the challenges is going to be the cost of developing AI. That's going to be always one of the big things in the next 3 months to 30 months, because I don't see the chip cost coming down. I see actually sort of you're going to find that the general compute is going to start becoming very costly because all of the computing power and all of the computing resources and the funds they are going to building AI chips, So you're going to see a lot of AI. In fact, this is an impact which people they don't see coming yet. You're going to see laptops they're going to become costlier, a lot more costlier. You're going to see general compute things like storage is going to become costly because all the funds, all the provisions, they are actually getting shifted and they are getting into the AI chip development. So this is one. The second thing is that the world, as the AI adoption is happening, there's so much of uncertainty in the organization. It's not unwillingness, it is actually uncertainty. And sometimes not being aware about it. The organizations, they will get exposed to a lot of threats, which they have not yet planned for. So these two things are going to happen at least for the next 2 years.
Cybersecurity will play a major role.
It will play a major role. One of the industry now.
50% will play a major role.
Correct. One of the industry, the cybersecurity is going to be in a very unique position. I find, in fact, in one of my slides, I'll mention about it, is that I find adoption of AI for cybersecurity would be in super speed mode on both sides of the world. You're going to find amazing detection technologies, you're going to find amazing protection technologies coming up, and then you're going to find adversaries actually coming up with incredible usage of AI to do the attacks which have not even been thought about by anybody in the world. So cybersecurity is going to be an exciting space, and it's going to be an exciting space on both sides of the equation. Okay, I'm starting with a statement which is not which is sort of like a controversial type of statement. One problem of the AI is that majority of the time when we are thinking about AI, well, more than 70% of us, our view of the AI is centric around ChatGPT. And that causes, and there's a problem with that, is that when you have fundamental view of the AI, which is centric around Something like ChatGPT, you don't have the picture, you don't have a thought model about how to go about strategizing, planning, strategizing. You don't have an understanding, you don't have a blueprint in your organization that what does it mean to have AI? Where all the AI is in my organization. So this is one fundamental issue I see in the industry, that this, because there's been so much of a talk around ChatGPT. There's been so much, that was the first thing which actually came out. Majority of the time when you think about AI, what comes to your mind first is things like ChatGPT and Gemini. And ChatGPT and Gemini kind of things, they are probably less than 5% of overall AI. So this is one problem, common problem in the industry. Too much of a generative AI related lens or perspective of the industry. Where is AI in your organization? It's expansive. Every one of these things, AI is there. You may not have any AI adoption, right? You may have blocked even the tokens. You may have blocked things like ChatGPT, you may have blocked things like Gemini. You may still have the tools which are using AI. You may still have in-house tools which are using AI, and those tools are still using prompts which are custom generated based on what you are doing on the interface. Right? So this is a sort of like a macro spectrum of where is AI in your organization. Right? The AI is there in your organization at places which you would least be expecting it to be. Now, question, but if you look at the bottom of the slide, so let's take an example. Would you, infrastructure, a lot of the new infrastructure is getting powered or getting generated by AI. How do you get visibility into such infrastructure? Another question, let's take an example, tools in your company, right? A lot of, if you look at the development process of your organization, and forget about the DevOps part, forget about the big process, go to developer. Sit down with that and see how he is really developing the code. You're going to find he's using tools like Cursor, but more than 70-80% of the coding is happening because Cursor is using AI in the back. Right? So this is the reality that AI is kind of like pervasive in your organization, irrespective of whether you have got a formal adoption of AI or not. What are the exposures related to AI? Of course, common things, common ones. The data poisoning, tools and plugin usage or abuse, role play based jailbreaks, membership interference attacks. Instead of reading through this one, let me just ask you: is any one of these? Have you seen that in practicality? Have you seen that this has happened in your organization? A compromise has happened, or you found an anomaly in your organization because of any of this? Not yet. You'll be seeing this in the next 6 months. If you have got any connection, even if you don't have a formal adoption of the AI, you're going to still see this in the next 6 months. You're going to find one of these threats knocking at your door and causing problems. Now, Gen AI, generative AI, it is as good for you as good it is for the adversary. In fact, if you look at the word of the adversaries, they're celebrating, and they're celebrating big. They have never had such easy access to tools which would transform how they do stuff. If I look at who is actually most happy on the planet, or which community is most happy on the planet in terms of AI evolution, it is in fact hackers community. So generative AI, which seems like a very nice thing to have, has got two faces. One face is for you, and one face is for the hackers. This is our secure AI frameworks. One is if you're adopting AI, you need to have testing done. Right? And you need to have comprehensive testing done. Right? A lot of time people they think AI testing is all about finding, I'm not going to go through each one of these blocks. I'm going to just summarize what is important in terms of securing AI. Right? A lot of people, a lot of times the thought model is that you could actually do the prompt injection related testing and you're done. Right? Not good enough. Absolutely not good enough. Right? AI is probably one of the rarest of the phenomena where governance and testing they have to come together. So far, if you look at the governance process and the testing process, they have stayed separated. AI is one particular phenomena which is going to bring governance and the testing almost together. How many of you actually have a formal governance process for AI in your organization? Is there a formal governance process in your organization? You develop something, all right, okay. Anybody else? If you don't have one, you have one, all right, okay. Based on certain, correct, right. So if you don't have one, please start now, right. Governance process for AI works very differently than the risk governance which you are used to. The governance model for AI is not similar to what you have been what industry has been used to in terms of risk-based governance, right? So if you don't have the AI governance here, please start now, right? Correct. Correct. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Now, one of the things is that governance, I found a very unique. It's not a complaint. It was essentially somebody sort of sought me out and said, "This is the situation. What do I do?" Right? And I said, so he explained to me that this is a defense contractor, by the way, right? And I said, "What is it?" So he said, "One of my designers, and this is defense-related equipment design. So one of my designer is basically building the design, a design blueprint. He's taking the meta information off in his knowledge, right? And then he's submitting that for refinement in terms of visual refinement to AI. What do I do? Is this going to be an issue for me or it's not going to be an issue for me?" So you get into questions like that, We find usage, we find your organization doing things, people doing things in the world of AI, which we haven't really figured out whether they're secure or not secure, whether they are ethical or not ethical, whether they are regulatory compliant or not compliant, right? And that's why I'm saying that the governance in the world of the AI is going to be very different than the classical risk-based governance. Yeah, please go ahead.
In this case, like we have online, offline, I think we might have something. In this case, when you have offline setup, then you can give it, but if you have an assurance that whatever you research, you do using the repository that you have offline, it don't go back to the source from where you got that software.
Correct.
So that offline one will be secured.
Might be, it depends. It depends on how that offline is it really offline, not offline, right? So it depends. But the point is not about whether you are secure, whether he did the right thing or nothing. The point is that you have
You should do it or not.
how you should
use
do
it or not.
Correct, right. So the point is about you have probably more than thousands of those type of situations where you don't know whether this has created exposure for me or not. Whether I've got regulation problems at my hand or not. You don't know about those situations. And that's where the governance framework, because the governance framework you're going to implement for AI now is going to need research, it's going to need for you to sit down. And another thing is that governance framework, unlike the risk models and the risk governance, the governance framework you're going to have to adopt for AI, they're not going to be common generic, which you could just roll out. Governance framework, they might have to be industry specific. In many cases, they might have to be customer specific governance framework, right? So that's where I think that if I look at all of these 4 blocks, the governance framework is the most critical thing. Let me just spend some time on the last block, the secure AI architecture. Right? I see a lot of industry nowadays, at least for now, because there's so much of a hype and the stuff has to be done. Companies, they gotta show something for AI security, like adopting solutions, buying product, right, laying out some processes. Right, very few companies in the industry, they have got to a point where they're thinking about secure AI architecture. Right? You could build, you could buy dozens of different products. You could actually sort of have, 2 dozens of different processes. But if you have not created a secure architecture for your AI adoption, eventually the cost of correction will be very, very high. Right? So this sort of this is just our portfolio right now. I don't want to talk about it. There's a team there and there's a booth there. You can collect all the information. Right? I'll take if there are any questions about specifically about AI security. Incident response. All right, thank you so much. Appreciate it. For the next person.